All right, so now we're on to the arm, and I will be blunt with you. This is going to be the more difficult one to do because it does require to get a very unique shape, and you can't just get it by just taking like a couple primitives and just kind of tweaking a couple things and calling it a day. We actually have to kind of do almost a little bit of advanced modeling, a lot more trickier than what you've done so far. But as long as you take it slow and double check every step, and I'll explain what kind of things you're looking for, you'll be able to get this. It'll just take a little bit of time. So what I'm talking about is if we look at the arm right here, it's a little bit hard to see, but we have areas where it's going over a shoulder, but then it's also going flat where it meets the side of the body. So that way it can kind of like swing back and forth without like actually rubbing together too much. So we have to get that complexity of actually having nice round areas, but then like a flat side back to where the wrist right here is round as well. So to do that, what I like to do is to start with essentially what is the shoulder. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go right here and create a sphere. So far we haven't done anything with the sphere. Most because like, yeah, like they have like their purpose in some places, but for the most part, my preferences, I use a lot of planes, I use a lot of cubes, I use a lot of cylinders. But for this right here, this lends easily to the shoulder. So again, going back to the legs and the hip part, we are going to crank this down because we don't want to have 20 by 20. That's default, and also that's a lot of geometry to worry about. So what I'm going to do is probably crank that in half, so down to 10. Just enough so I have just enough geometry. And again, remember to keep it even because it makes it cutting it up and making it into halves and quarters a lot easier. So with that said, what we're going to do is flip it around. So where it comes down to that point, we want to put it right where it meets in that armpit. So we're just going to twirl that around, get that lined up, and double check by just going right here to 90. And now we're just going to move that. It's right there. And scale it down so where it kind of starts matching the shape of that shoulder. Now, another reason why I like the look of this reference is because we got nice little like angle lines right here. So what I want to do is actually get half of the sphere to line up with the angle of this torso. So we're going to twist it right there. And 10's not looking too good right here, so I'm going to actually turn that up to 12 by 12. And as long as we're not doing too much with our sphere, we can very easily go back and fix that. So just going to move that. And the key part is that half of it is lining up with the torso. So see our torso line right here? This is actually lining up. And then also this axis right here is lining up with that almost armpit line. So now we have good angle. And then from there, we only need the shoulder. So I'm just going to go right here, kind of move this off to the side. Now, we will address the fact that this is a little bit more tilted later on. But right now, we're just going to go and start deleting things. Delete what we don't need. So get rid of this half, this half. So that only really, this part, almost like a shoulder pad, is left. So now we got the basis of what we're going to start building. Now this is where we have to start being very careful, pay attention to what we're doing. That way we can start getting the form right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, oh, not what I want. I'm going to go and grab the edges. Sometimes that can have a little hard time selecting. Just make sure that we're hovering over a component like the edge, and we can go and select that. So I'm going to do it inside of here. Now you may notice my rest of my model is not there. That's because I have isolated selection turned on. If I hit Control 1, he's back. All right, but right now I'm focusing on this just by itself inside my perspective view. Just make sure that I'm getting the right edges selected. So, and we just want to select all the bottom ones. So that one right there, that one right there, that one. All right, so then we're going to go into our front view where we see him like that, and we're just going to extrude down. So again, I'm holding down Shift and bringing that all the way over. Again, just making sure that this is sticking flat to right here. Now, that is about it what I'm going to do in the front view. Now it is going to be getting it aligned in this view right here, because we have to get the contour of this popping out, you know, the right where the elbow bends, things like that. So what we're going to do is go into our front view and see the center line. We want to twist this to where the center line follows that right there. So it's almost going down the side of the arm. So we're just going to rotate it until it kind of like matches up right there. All right, that's looking good. Maybe need to make one or two adjustments. But for the most part, yeah, we want that to kind of match up with that angle. And now we need to get an edge loop in here for the elbow. Well, we could use the insert edge loop tool because we have the geometry there. We just need to control it, and that is completely usable. You can do that if you want to. I'm going to use my multi-cut tool. So I'm just going to hold down Shift right click, multi-cut, and we are going to just kind of cut from the corner of the elbow there to the middle of the elbow on the other side, and that kind of fits my joint. All right, that's looking good. And from there, what we're going to do is I'll just grab the edge, and if I need to make any tweaking or anything like that, that looks actually about right. I'm not going to mess with that. If I need to scale it down, what I want to do is hold down D and V and move it to like one of the corners, like either there or there, and kind of scale it in from there. So, and for something like this, since this is more complex shape, we will be using just like the one-side scale and not the universal scale. Same thing with right here. Now, if your pivot is all wonky like that, we can actually play around with that by changing the axis that's on. So right here, we are just going to hold down R and left mouse click. And right now it's set to object. And what I want to instead is have it set to world. That way I can kind of scale this out, and it starts flaring out like that actual elbow. Now, you do probably need to make some adjustments right here because it looks like this is overlapping, and that's why we take it slow. We look to make sure that things are kind of lining up, because we want that edge right here to still stay kind of pretty flush to that torso. And then again right there, we just go on to just scale this out so it matches that elbow. And double check that. That's looking all right. It's looking wonky, but the fact is that the point is that now we're trying to flesh out that shape. And now we can kind of take this bottom part and I need to reset that pivot, so I'm going to hold down D and click anywhere out in the Maya wilderness, and that will reset it. And then we're just going to twist that to where it matches up with the cuff. So twist, move that over. Again, making sure that we grab the axes right here. You don't want to just kind of randomly just start doing that because you can kind of get flipped and twist upon itself. Let's just be safe and just kind of make adjustments like that right there. So, and the things that we're looking out for is we want to make sure that this is nice, clean lines. We don't want anything that's looking like it's starting to twist onto itself. All right, and now we're just going to kind of twist that to where it's lining up a little bit better, and see how we got that nice roundness. We're just going to move that, and then we're just going to move our pivot as it bugs out on us. So DV. So move our pivot right here and scale it out. And then we just want to twist this so it's actually matching up. All right. So for the most part, that's looking good. Do need to tweak this out right here. So hold down D, click somewhere off to the side, and we're just going to kind of make this flat again. And we're not going to worry about the scale just yet, because what we're going to do is now we need to cap off this side. To do that, we're going to use a few new tools. Definitely make sure that you're checking out the prerequisites for this and watching the lectures. But we're just going to go right here and select from one side exactly to the other side, one side exactly to the other side, and then hold down Shift, right click, and we're going to hit Bridge, and we're going to hit the option box. We're going to immediately reset this tool, so just reset, and it should by default be linear type for the bridge type, direction, automatic, divisions 0, and we can hit apply. What that does is allow us to actually kind of bridge that off. And then we can select, double click one of these edges, and it will go all the way around, allowing us to shift right click and hit fill hole, which will cover that up. Now, one last thing, we're going to go right here, use our multi-cut tool using shift right click, and draw from one of these center edges right here. So this one, again, is that center edge that goes along that line that we try to line up with, and then just drag directly into the center for right here. All right, so now this is looking good. Our last step is another new tool, which is, remember how I was saying, hey, now we got this roundness and this complexity right here, and then we need this to go round again. Now, we don't want to have to sit here and hand round this. But what we can do is instead select all the edges around that opening. And then shift right click and go to Circleize Components. What that will do is actually take those components and try to make it into a round surface, which allows us to now start making those adjustments. So I'm just going to go right here, and I'm just going to keep in mind where the front is. So that's the top one right there that I'm highlighting. We can kind of see that right there, and then the back one is right there. We're going to start kind of twisting this. First, we want to twist this to where our edges are not kind of like having to spin it around really far to get to its next point. We don't want this to have to draw to an edge that's all the way over here. Because once we start wrapping it around, it just makes for weird, bad geometry, and we get this weird popping effect. So that's what we're looking out for that. Also, we need to kind of match the angle and the roundness of this right here. So see this hoop, we're trying to match it up with that. So if we go right there, match up the hoop, that is looking pretty good. So again, just kind of twist this, tweak this right here. Now, keep in mind this is still like kind of like a blueprint, so our angles are not going to perfectly match up for both, but that is looking pretty good. So for that, what I'm going to do is now just hold down Shift and scale extrude in and see where that hoop is kind of matching up to where that wrist part goes. I'm going to leave it like that right there for now because we want to make sure that it's actually following the wrist. But for the most part, that is how we're going to deal with the arm. Now, with that said, we're still going to just double check the shape. So that's looking pretty good. And then also be aware of these. We will address that when we get to our cleanup video. All right. But yep, just make sure that you're following the shape, taking it very easy, step by step, and make sure that you're making visual notes of like what you're trying to be hitting. But yeah, that's how we make the arm. If you can do this arm, the rest of the project is going to be, for the most part, a piece of cake. So give yourself a pat on the back.